Now it's 9 p.m. in RTD. It's time to English New Edition for tonight headlines. We have President Gele kicks off the construction of a modern building for the Ministry of Energy. The solemn opening of the second ordinary session at the National Assembly. For the international scene, the mark of 5 million deaths in the world faced the coronavirus. Welcome to our newsroom. President Gele kicks off the construction of a modern building for all departments of the Ministry of Energy. The Head of State, His Excellency Ismail Omar Gele, proceeded this Sunday morning to the launching of the construction work of a new headquarters for all the departments of the Ministry of Energy, including the International Company of Hydrocarbon of Djibouti, the public institutions in charge of the import and development of the hydrocarbon sector in Djibouti. The initiative of the construction of this building is in line with the refocusing undertaken under the direct leadership of the President of the Republic in the Djiboutian energy policy. Redefined as a national priority, it should be noted that the energy sector has acquired the status of national priority in Djibouti, given its established vocations to attract investors conducive to our industrialization and therefore to contribute significantly to our collective access to sustainable development. Modern building integrating all the provision, including technical office material useful for the realizations of optimal work and results. The future headquarters of all departments of the Ministry of Energy, including the International Hydrocarbon of Djibouti, will be fully developed over a period of 20 months. It will eventually consist of buildings of 7 floors, including the first floor and an underground parking. The spurious nature granted to the Ministry of Energy is commensurated with the role of epicenter's nerve center. It is called to play in the crucial process of identification, planning, and implementation of energy development projects for our country. The cost of building the future headquarters is estimated at about $13 million. The company China First, known worldwide for its expertise in the design and construction of high-quality buildings, is the main contractor for this project. The Minister of Energy in charge of Natural Resources, Yunus Ali Geddi, surrounded by the main officials of his department, took part in the official ceremony of the launching of the future headquarters of all the departments of the Ministry of Energy. The General Director of the International Hydrocarbon Society in Djibouti said must respond to the policy of the President access on a regional hub possessing the hydrocarbons in order to resell in Africa and generally in the world. The first steps we have taken is to own an ultra-modern buildings and to thus show our partners that we can invest in our countries and also participate in the development of our countries. These new buildings will first embellish our countries, and also these sites will embellish more its strategic and historical position for our country. This new site will meet the vision and policy of the President in the field of hydrocarbon, which will undoubtedly participate in the development of the country. The Minister of Energy, Yunus Ali Geddi, has just underlined that this site will allow to answer the office automation needs of the engineers and the personnel of the Ministry of Energy, so that they can work in good conditions. We have many projects in progress, such as the storage We have many projects underway, such as storage, refinery, and also we have the will to make our countries a strategic place that can supply the region and the world in the fight of hydrocarbons. This is our will, but also the will of and vision of the President of the Republic. The value of this site is estimated at $60 million. For his part, President Gele described the buildings under construction as a privileged setting for the realizations of meticulous, professional, and high-quality work. The acquisitions of this modern site will not only put an end to the situations of parsimony of premises, but will also contribute to the provision of conditions conducive to the execution of tasks and creativity in a flagship sectors of our development, he said.
يا حولها انت عليك يا قروح ده انت عليك كسو صارنا جيبوتي ندي waxay u tahay kor u qaadid weyn iyo u tahay.
This Sunday, October 3, 2021, was held the solemn opening of the activity of Parliament for its second ordinary sessions of the year 2021, led by the President of the National Assembly, His Excellency Mohamed Ali Mohamed. This official ceremony was attended by Prime Minister Abdul Qadir Kamil Mohammed, national elected officials, some member of the government, diplomatic representative, and UN agencies, prefect and local and customary authorities, representatives of the Djiboutian security and defense forces, and senior officers. After a vibrant national anthem, the audience is listening attentively to the particular agenda of any solemn opening sessions, namely the speeches of the President of the National Assembly and the general policy speech delivered by the Prime Ministers in their respective speeches. The President of the National Assembly and the Prime Ministers raised several socio-political issues as well as analyses, assessments, and prospects, as well as the 2022 budget. The budget sessions will allow the preparations of the 2022 budget with intense debate with the parliamentarian. The preparations of the 2022 budget will be at the heart of the debate between the parliamentarian and the executive. The reinforcement of the technological capacity of the Djiboutian Parliament with the introductions of the antiques, the agenda of the Djiboutian Parliament, which will host the meetings of the African Parliamentary Union. The Prime Minister insisted on the importance of the development of a new system of information and communication technologies. The Prime Minister insisted on the national cohesion and the involvement of ministerial departments in the implementation of government policy to guarantee unity, success, a cohesion that will be found in the implementation of the government's policy, a cohesion that will be found in good governance with the creation of new body called the National Debt Management Council, placed under the coordination of the Primacy. Speaking at the formal sessions of this morning, the President of the National Assembly, Mohamed Ali Mohamed, stressed that this session comes after the parliamentary trust and after Djiboutian voted for the President of the Republic last April to carry out the project he has designated for his nation since his first term in office. The President paid tribute to the Djiboutian people who have made the most of the growth and who have been able to face all the challenges. He added that in the period of COVID-19, the National Assembly has equipped itself with modern technology to communicate, and soon it will host the 76 sessions of the Executive Committee of the 43rd round conference of the President of the African Parliamentary Union. The formal meeting of the Assembly of this morning is called budget session. The Prime Minister member of the government, parliamentarian, diplomats, senior officials, and administrative officials of the Central Administrative of the Djibouti Security, Defense Forces, senior officers, and armed forces, the ombudsman, as well as the prefect and officials of the elected representative. The Prime Minister spoke at length on the podium after the President of the Assembly. The Prime Minister spoke at length about all aspects of the economic, social policy of our country. In first part of his speech, the Prime Minister returned to the elections of the President of the Republic, a major act of President of the Republic and the national politics that was expressed. Listen to the Prime Minister.
Here we are, meeting for the first time after the election of the President of the Republic. This major action of national politics took place in a calm atmosphere. It was the occasion to express the strong will of our youth to pursue with President Ismail Omar Guelleh, at the same time the consolidation of the Djiboutian nation, the economic development of the country, and the democratization of the society. The Djiboutians, in their great majority, expressed themselves for the head of state, symbol of the important development of the country and the national cohesion. They wanted that the one who laid the foundations of a democratic, modern, and growing country could continue his work so that it is definitely irreversible. The equity between women and men, the equitable development of all regions, the strengthening of the rule of law, the modernization of our economy have become under his leadership the new pillars of the Djiboutian nation. The people have made this choice. The President of the Republic has asked the government to respect this popular will by assessing that to each minister new mission letters, taking into account, even more, all the commitments he has made. This is the new duty of each member of the government. The governmental seminar organized in Arta was the first symbol of this will of gathering. It laid the foundations for a new way of working together at the top of the executive. National cohesion must become the primary objective. Transparency and interdepartmental cooperation will be accumulated and will improve governmental action. The involvement of all ministerial departments in the implementation of government policy will be a guarantee of unity and success. Any personal ambition will always come up against the interests of the nation.
Continuing his speech, the Prime Minister returned to the COVID-19 pandemic, which is still at risk with the new variant. He even advised everyone in the hemicycle to be vaccinated as soon as possible. He even advised everyone in the hemicycle to get vaccinated as soon as possible. Listen once again to the Prime Minister.
Ladies and gentlemen, this year again, the preparation of the budget will be done in a training sanitary context. COVID-19 has developed new variants. The government will maintain all the measures that have reduced the spread of the virus. To protect the population, it will continue to make every effort to ensure that the economy does not come to a standstill. Vaccination will be reinforced. Testing will be continued on a massive scale and barrier measures will be maintained. In 2022, it is expected that the spread of this disease will be controlled through the availability of vaccines, improved treatment therapies, and screening campaigns. While the government has been able to effectively combat the effects of the virus in Djibouti, this global pandemic has had some negative effects on our economy in 2020. The slowdown of the world economy has obviously had an impact on our country, especially in terms of re-exports from the port of Dorale. It's still the main engine of growth in the country, but the recovery is here. Investments have slowed down in 2020 and represent 16.4% of GDP. On the other hand, investment will pick up over the period 2021 to 2025 and will average 23.5% of GDP. Inflation will continue to be controlled during this period at around 2.3%. Ladies and gentlemen, the preparation of the 2022 budget is the international context that we know, both regionally and internationally, as well as health, and according to the economic model of Djibouti, can be summarized as follows at the level of revenues and expenditures. Tax revenues has been set at nearly 81 million Djiboutian francs, an increase of more than 10% over the initial 2021 Finance Act. This increase, which affects both direct and indirect taxes as well as other taxes, is the result of the administration's efforts to improve their collection. Domestic non-tax revenues will also be up about 2.5 billion Djiboutian francs. From state revenues, dividends, and revenues from other services. I would like to reiterate that the government's budgetary policy gives priority to mobilizing public review. This tax reform process, which has been underway for several years, will be maintained and strengthened. To this end, two main priorities have been identified to increase revenues. improving debt management, which I have already mentioned to you, with the aim of benefiting from the best borrowing conditions and modernizing the tax system. With its three colours: simplification, broadening the tax base, and strengthening collection. Revenues for and legislative branches will be strengthened. The 2022 budget is now conversed within a 5-year framework to allow for a better visibility of budgetary evolution and more transparent governance. It is part of the Djiboutian 2035 vision and it is therefore an important tool in the government's development policy. Ladies and gentlemen, economic development will receive another boost. The transport sector, which is currently the main driver of the economy, will be boosted by the construction of the Demerjok port and related infrastructure. This will also increase the share of industrial and manufacturing products in the GDP. Even more innovative, a second sector will become another engine of the economy. It is the telecommunications sector. The privatization of Djibouti Telecom will be the catalyst for the strong growth expected in this activity. Our banking system and the Sovereign Wealth Fund are two key elements in this development architecture, which will help support Djibouti's strong regional development. The development of the energy sector will also be part of this economic growth. It will be based mainly on national green resources, geometrical and hydraulic energy under study, solar energy and wind turbines under construction. The wind turbines in the Lake Assar region will produce electricity very soon. While waiting for the use of national green energy resources, a second connection line with Ethiopia will be built as well as the new terminal power plant. This will allow meeting the demand in the short term.
Finally, in the last part of his speech, the Prime Minister returned to the developmental challenges facing the capital in terms of housing and urban problems in the capital. Nevertheless, the government is making effort to improve and support our population in the capital, but also in the interior regions. For this reason, the President is determined and the government is mobilized to associate for all the peoples of the interior to the national growth. So listen to the Prime Minister Abdelkader Kamil Mohammed.
Ladies and gentlemen, the government policy does not focus solely on the city of Djibouti. Obviously and unquestionably, it is in the development of this great regional pole that allows to release all the national wealth, which results from the very strong growth of the country. You know it, Djibouti's growth performance has been good for several years now. It is even ranked first in Africa. But the government wants to direct this additional wealth in two directions at the same time. The first is to progressively enable the strong development of each region, and the second is to support in a permanent and more marked way the population still on the banks of growth. The goal is to associate all the populations of the interior as well as the most deprived of the whole country to the national growth. This fundamental objective will strengthen unity and reinforce the nation. The President of the Republic is fully determined, the whole government is mobilized to succeed. Thus, in each region, all the potentialities are sought and studied to allow the creation of secondary development poles, following the example of what has been done with the port of Tajorra or the salt of Lake Assar. All members of the government are associated with this work with the regional elected officials and all economic actors. This broad reflection must allow to define economic centers able to motivate Djiboutians to undertake projects as they do in Djibouti. The means of the state will be there to accompany them. In the tourism sector, in that of mining or energy, as is those of primary sector, trade, crafts, all projects in the regions must become a priority. This will be accompanied by strengthening of local administrative services through the declaration of central administration. The Ministerial Department of Decentralization is actively coordinating this action with all the other ministries concerned in the communities. The regional development plans will bring together the projects that will form the backbone of the region's development. But even more than today, all those who are too far from the main or secondary economic centers, or who have not had the opportunity, like their children, to receive training, or the handicapped, or more generally all those who remain outside of development, will not be forgotten. The Ministries of Solidarity, Women, Agriculture, Health, and National Education, along with the financial departments, contribute in the first place to providing not only immediate material support, but also the means to integrate into the economy. Of course, in parallel to these targeted actions for the most disadvantaged, the Ministerial Departments of Health and National Education and Vocational Training act for all and thus remain the pillars of national unity and equality. Health for all and school for all are the basis of this. The beginning of the school year that has just taken place is a testimony of this. The vaccination campaigns for young children throughout the country with the continuity of health coverage is another. Ladies and gentlemen, we know that the improvement of the standard of living of the entire population contributes significantly to our national unity. Also, the increase in the quality of housing is not limited to Djibouti. The interior of the country is also concerned. The IOG Foundation is also an important initiative in this field in the interior of the region. Our common goal is development by all and for all. This is the basis for interior peace. Peace, which we appreciate the advantage, because of the conflicts and their disastrous consequences, which exist all over the world.
In the continuity of the general inspections of the Chief of Staff General of the Armed Forces, following the assumption of command of a new head of corps of the Interior Regiment, the region of Arta, where is located the Joint Military Academy of Arta, EMIA, is the penultimate step. The honor belongs to Colonel Muhammad Mumin Abdi, the new director of this academy, to welcome this Sunday, October 3, 2021, General Zakaria Sheikh Ibrahim. The purpose of this general inspection is to review the situations of all personnel, material, and equipment in the academy. Also, these inspections allow us to have an overview of the different facilities of the corps. Let us recall that the ARTA, Joint Military Academy, EMIA, is an ambitious national project born of the political will of the President of the Republic and the Supreme Commanders of the Armed Forces, His Excellency Ismail Omar Guelleh, created by presidential decree on December 5, 2007. The ARTA Joint Military Academy was officially inaugurated on January 28, 2010 by His Excellency the President of the Republic. This academy is a military institution whose vocation is to train active officers of the Djiboutian Armed Forces, the Republican Guard, the National Gendarmerie, and the Coast Guard. In this trip, General Zakaria Sheikh Ibrahim was accompanied by Colonel Ibrahim Almi Qaib, Acting Chief of Staff of the National Gendarmerie, Colonel Abdurrahman Ali Kahin, Acting Director General of the National Police, and officers of the General Staff of the Armed Forces. Also present were the Mayor of Djibouti, Fatma Awad Osman, the Deputy Prefect of Arta, Mohamed Fouzi Ahmed, and the President of the Regional Council, Ilmi Bouh. On his arrival, the Chief of Staff was welcomed by Colonel Muhammad Mumin Abdi, the new director of the Academy, in the presence of the Colonel Major Muhammad Qayad Guelleh, Deputy Chief of the Defense Staff, and Colonel Wagdi Jama Musa, Chief of the Protocol of after the customary greetings. General Zakaria Sheikh Ibrahim undertook the review of the troops composed of the first, second, and third years cadet. The restricted delegations of senior officers of the General Staff of the Armed Forces closed the event. In his speech, General Zakaria Sheikh Ibrahim, Chief of the General Staff of the Armed Forces, underlined that the Academy was created in December 2007 on the directive of the President of the Republic, the Supreme Chief of the Armed Forces. This joint military academy has been since its creation the school for excellence for the initial trainings of young officers of the army, but also of the gendarmerie, the Republican Guard, and the Coast Guard. As director of EMIA, it is your responsibility and duty to rigorously monitor the training and disciplines of the cadets, as well as to preserve the equipment and infrastructures at your disposal. At the end of the speech, the Chief of the Defense Staff was given a brief presentation on the resources available to the Academy. Unlike other regiments in the interior, the EMIA Academy is a training center of excellence whose vocation is the training of young officers destined to command men. Its primary mission is to the training in the profession of command, discipline, and military rigor. At the end of this training, the officer is a military leader is capable of preparing his troops technically, physically, and morally, and if necessary, leads them into battle as a fighter's engineers or manager. This military officer's mission is to defend the integrity of the territory and the interests of the country. Then General Zakaria Sheikh Ibrahim proceeded to the inspections of the mobility means held in the Arta Joint Military Academy, EMIA. At the end of the ceremony, General Zakaria Sheikh Ibrahim attended a march past of the troops of the Arta Joint Military Academy, EMIA, headed by the new director, Colonel Muhammad Mumin Abdi. The ceremony ended with a refreshment and the traditional family photo.
tahay ilwaadi markiyan askari gala arligaynu leenahay eba ugu dhartoon ogada xisaaray gam'aanahay tiir la irkadaanahay adigaha adin laga baqaanahay sef laba aflaanahay gesi aaminaanahay indhihii dalkaanahay laba aflaanahay gesi aaminaanahay indhihii dalkaanahay.
The chairman of the Ports and Free Zone Authority, Abubakar Umar Hedi, received yesterday Mr. Christophe Bigot, Director of Africa and Indian Ocean at the French Ministry of Foreign Affairs, accompanied by Arnaud Guillois, Ambassador of France to Djibouti. Several topics of mutual interest were on the agenda of the discussions, including the project of the new airport Al-Haj Hassan Guled Abtidon. For the international scene, the 5 million mark for coronavirus deaths was passed on Saturday. According to latest, the highly contagious Delta variant is now responsible for the vast majority of coronavirus infections worldwide. More than half of the deaths over an average of 7 days were in the US, Russia, Brazil, Mexico, and India. More than 700,000 people have died from COVID-19 in the United States since the pandemic began, according to the Johns Hopkins University count Friday, the equivalent of the populations of the capital of city of Washington, while it took just over a year for the COVID-19 deaths total reached 2.5 million. The next 2.5 million deaths were tallied in just under 8 months. This is it for the news. Thanks for watching us. Have a good evening.